4. They continued traveling deeper into the barren countryside off the Gulf, passing marshlands, thinning palms, and abandoned houses and trailer homes. Eventually, they came to a patch of farmland being grazed by cows. A tanker truck was stopped dead on the road, and several cars were lined up behind it. A couple of sheriff's cruisers with their emergency lights flashing blocked the lane, and an officer stood in the middle of the road directing traffic. "Must be a bad wreck," Wayne said, navigating around the truck. Maxine had been drinking her Coke, reading her script, and trying to memorize her lines, but she looked up at the moment Wayne had slowed. She peered through the open passenger window, trying to see what was happening, but as they drew even with the truck, she wished she'd kept her nose buried in the script. The tanker was covered with blood from bumper to windshield, and steam curled up from the smashed radiator. 10 feet in front of the truck lay one of the cows, black eyes unblinking, blood-frothed tongue lolling out of its mouth, the tip touching the asphalt. The animal must have slipped through the fence at some point and had the bad luck, or bad sense, to walk onto the road just as the tanker truck was approaching. The impact had been so violent that the cow had nearly been split in two. Its organs were spread across the road in a glistening mound, its body cavity hollow. An officer stood next to the dead animal, gazing down at it passively, as if he saw this kind of thing every day. Maxine began gagging. She turned away from the window and brought a hand to her mouth. She hated throwing up. "What is it?" Bobby Lynn asked. She scooted forward and craned her neck so she could see. "Don't look," Wayne said. "I hate blood and guts," Maxine said in a weak voice. The van's passenger side tires rolled over the wet chunks of cow meat, and the sound nearly caused Maxine to vomit. "Get control of yourself, bitch. You've been through much worse than this," she told herself. She managed to fight back the urge to puke, and while her nausea didn't go away completely, it subsided to the point where it was tolerable. "Just when you thought you'd expect the slaughterhouse," Wayne said. "No matter what you do, you still end up a pile of bloody meat." Maxine felt well enough to look out the window once more. As they passed one of the cruisers, a man wearing a sheriff's badge got out and started walking toward the cow. "Was that the—" She stopped herself before she could say anything more. "You say something?" Wayne asked. "No." She thought Wayne might press her, but he didn't, and she was grateful. She looked at the side mirror and saw a man dressed in a ball cap and wife beater shoveling pieces of the animal's organs into the ditch. Must be the trucker, she thought. "You make a mess, it's on you to clean it up, Maxine." It was something her daddy used to say. They drove for another half hour, and just as Maxine was thinking they'd never arrive, Wayne slowed the van. "This is it," he said. "Our own studio backlot." Wayne turned into a dirt driveway with fences on either side. A sign on the right said "Keep Out," and the one on the left said "No Trespassing." Friendly folks, Maxine thought. They drove through an entrance gate. Normally, a metal sign would hang from the gate, displaying the farm's name, something like Echo Valley Farm or Castle Creek Ranch. There was no sign here, though. Wayne had said this place was called Powder Keg Farms, so maybe it was a good thing they didn't have a sign. Whatever the case, she was just glad they were here. Her ass was numb from sitting for so long. "Thank goodness," Bobby Lynn said. "I'm horny." Jackson chuckled. "You're always horny." "No, not always," said Bobby Lynn, sounding a bit hurt. They continued down the driveway, trees on the right, tall grass swaying in the breeze on their left, crows cawing off in the distance. RJ duck-walked from the rear of the van and crouched between Wayne and Maxine. A huge grin spread across his face as he gazed at the perfect land around them. "It's perfect," he said. "It's really going to add a lot of production value." "It's just a bunch of grass and trees," Maxine thought. "Where the hell's the value in that? Wait until you start filming and I'll show you some goddamn value." Wayne drove up to a 2-story farmhouse so old it looked like it should have been in a museum. There was a red barn with a rusted tin roof 100 feet or so from the house, and Maxine wondered if there was any animals inside. She loved animals. Although at this particular moment, she didn't want to see any fucking cows. An old, rusty-in truck was parked at the side of the house, one of them things from the 50s that looked like a sedan in front and a pickup in the back. Maxine remembered seeing them on the road a lot when she was a kid. Farmers seemed to love the things, but she had no idea why. She thought they were ugly. Wayne parked the van and turned off the engine. Y'all stay put while I go handle some business right quick. He got out, shut the door, checked his reflection in the side view mirror, and started towards the house. As soon as Wayne was gone, RJ picked up the movie camera and opened the van's rear door. Maxine turned around in her seat. Didn't you hear what Wayne said? He said stay put. RJ looked back at her. The sun is beautiful right now. I need to get establishing shots of the locations for transitions between scenes, he said. To Maxine, he sounded like a little boy begging his mama to let him go out and play. Last I checked, you ain't paying for none of this. You want to film pictures of grass growing, you do it on your own dime, she said. RJ looked as if he was going to protest, but instead he gave her a brief nod and closed the rear door. Ooh, you got in trouble, Bobby Lynn said. She laughed, and Jackson joined her. RJ, looking crestfallen, put the camera down. Lorraine put a hand on his shoulder to console him. Stop it, Maxine said to Bobby Lynn. Bobby Lynn made a face at her, but she and Jackson quit laughing. Yeah, Mama, Bobby Lynn said. Forget them, Jackson said. How about we warm up a little before our big scene, he said, and he put his hands on her waist and pulled her to him. Bobby Lynn grinned. Now you're talking. She wrapped her arms around his neck and they began kissing passionately. Maxine rolled her eyes and went back to reading her script. At least, she tried to read. Lorraine started talking to RJ then, and although they both tried to keep their voices down, Maxine could hear every word they said. This wasn't what I had in mind when I agreed to help with your film, Lorraine said. RJ sounded defensive, and he answered, Gotta start somewhere, Lorraine. But RJ, it's... She lowered her voice even more. Smut. When RJ spoke again, he sounded more than a little defensive. When did you become such a prude? He said. Now it was Lorraine's turn to sound defensive. I'm not. I just don't understand why you're doing this. Because it's possible to make a good, dirty movie. Maxine shook her head. College kids. She returned her attention to her script. Bobby Lynn and Jackson continued making out, oblivious to anything going on around them. Wayne walked across the flagstones onto the porch. The place might be old, but it still held together well. Only the screen door was closed, and he could see into a narrow hallway, but there was no lights on inside, so he couldn't see far, just a few feet. Everything beyond was gloom and shadow. He rapped on the door jamb, doing the shave and a haircut knock. Then he waited and waited. He fiddled with his high school class ring, then looked at his fingernails, checking to make sure they were evenly trimmed. He wasn't a vain man, but he believed everything about a person, even the little things, told you who they were. Your appearance was as important as anything else when it came to doing business. A gravelly voice issued from somewhere in the darkness, an old voice. Who's that? Wayne removed his sunglasses and leaned forward to peer through the screen. He didn't see anyone. It was almost as if the house itself had responded. Yes, sir, he said, raising his voice. It's Wayne Gilroy. We spoke on the telephone. There was a silence for several moments, and then he heard the soft shuffle of shoes on wood. A second later, a silhouette appeared at the far end of the hallway, as if the darkness had taken solid form. The silhouette began inching forward, moving stiffly. Howard, right? Wayne asked. The old man stepped into the light, darkness sliding off of him like oil. The man was older than Wayne had thought, and he'd expected the fucker to be ancient. He had to be in his 80s, maybe even his 90s. His face was all lines, cracks, and crevices, as alien as the surface of the moon. His hair, what remained of it, was white as bone. His skin was dotted with liver spots, and the joints of his fingers were hard knobs, but his eyes burned with the angry heat of a much younger man, and Wayne found himself taking a couple of steps back. You from the county? The old man challenged. This here is private property. Don't you see the signs at the end of the drive? He reached for something propped next to the door and pointed it at Wayne. It was a shotgun. Howard stepped forward, the barrel of his gun pushing the screen door open. Wayne felt an ice-cold flutter in his chest. His first instinct was to turn and run like hell, but he knew if he did, he'd end up catching both barrels in the back. Instead, he removed his hat and spread his hands out to his sides in an attempt to make himself look as unthreatening as possible. Easy, partner, he said in what he hoped was a soothing tone. Maxine, still reading through her script, and Bobby Lynn and Jackson were still going at it when movement on the porch caught her attention. She looked up and saw Wayne backing slowly away from someone, pointing a shotgun at him. Whoever it was remained in the house. All Maxine could see was the barrel of the gun, and that was more than enough. "Something's wrong," she said. Jackson broke away from Bobby Lynn and looked at Maxine. "What you talking about?" he asked. Jackson and Bobby Lynn came forward to see what was happening outside, and RJ and Lorraine joined them. "Fuck this," Maxine thought. She popped open the glove box and reached for the pistol Wayne kept there for emergencies. She figured this sure as shit qualified. Howard might have been old as dirt, but Wayne knew the man didn't need to be Hercules to squeeze a trigger. He kept his eyes locked on the old man's, and he did not like what he saw there. He had no doubt this motherfucker could kill him without hesitation or regret. "You're trespassing. The law says I could shoot," Howard said. Wayne felt like he was going to piss himself, but he kept calm. "Sir, I ain't from the county," he said. "I'm from Houston. We spoke on Tuesday, remember? About y'all's boarding house?" Howard didn't reply. Wayne wondered if he'd hear the shotgun blast before he died. Then Howard slowly lowered the gun. "That's right, yeah, about a place to stay," he said. He propped the gun against the wall once more. "Never can be too careful with strangers," he said. Wayne put his hat back on and tried to smile. He succeeded, more or less. "You had me pretty nervous there," he said. "It ain't even loaded. Most of the time waving it around's all it takes." Howard opened the screen door, stepped out onto the porch, and stood directly in front of Wayne. Wayne wouldn't have thought it possible, but the man looked even older in full daylight. "Yes, sir, I keep the same thing in my glove box." He turned toward the van, slipped his sunglasses back on, and gave a little wave to let his friends know everything was copacetic. Howard peered over Wayne's shoulder to see who he was waving at, and squinted in the sunlight. "Wow, that's one ugly sumbitch," Jackson said. Bobby Lynn smacked his face. Jackson grinned. "What, he is?" Bobby Lynn giggled. Maxine put the pistol back in the glove box and closed it. She'd never held a gun before, but she was surprised by how natural it had felt in her hand. Howard waited by the truck while everyone got their stuff. Maxine was about to lock up the van when she saw her High Society magazine laying on the dash. She put her suitcase down, opened the passenger door, and reached to get it. "Can't leave Wonder Woman behind," she thought. She started to close the door but stopped when she noticed a shadowy figure standing at one of the upstairs windows, watching her. The figure stepped closer to the window, and Maxine saw that it was an old woman, probably the farmer's wife. She waited to see if the woman was going to do anything, wave maybe, but all she did was stand there, expressionless. Decrepit old witch, Maxine thought. She closed the van door, picked up her suitcase, and started walking away, but she couldn't resist taking a last glance at the woman as she went. The old woman watched the girl go. The little harlot was barely wearing anything, displaying so much skin she might as well be naked. She liked the way the sun kissed her skin, though. She imagined trailing her smooth fingers across it, tasting it with her tongue, so smooth, so young, so sweet. There was something different about that girl. Something special.